All right, thanks to everybody for joining us. In preparation for the start of early voting, which starts on February 10th, the Mocs Go Vote Committee here at UTC has asked City Council candidates to speak with high school and college students in Chattanooga, answer their questions, and share their vision for the future of Chattanooga. So joining us is candidate for District 4, Mr. Bill Loyd. So Mr. Loyd, I will turn it over to you and you can introduce yourself.
Sure, I appreciate that. I'm Bill Loyd. I'm a 4.5-year resident of Chattanooga. Moved down here with my family from the Chicagoland area. I'm a career banker working with businesses, specifically businesses and business owners, privately owned. My experience previously is out of state. I was elected to the Board of Education of a very large school district in Illinois, just outside of Chicago, not the Chicago school district. So I do have that experience there. And as well, my community involvement and volunteer activities have focused on organizations that support children and adults with disabilities, organizations that provide early childhood education, and of course, being elected to a public school district Board of Education, certainly public education as well.
Great, thanks. I'll turn it over to the students if one of you wants to take the plunge and go first.
Sure, I'll go. Hi, my name is Katie. I'm a graduate student at UTC. I'm getting my Master's of Public Administration with a focus in nonprofit management. I'm currently the box office manager at the Chattanooga Theater Center. So that kind of leads into my first question for you. I am very concerned about the arts, especially in Chattanooga, especially during COVID. So my first question is, do you plan to make the arts in Chattanooga a priority if you would obtain the seat in District 4? Do you have any plans on starting or continuing arts initiatives?
Well, I would tell you this. I think the arts are important. I definitely agree with you, and especially in a situation like COVID, where people are, relatively confined or in their home or working remotely, having less access or less ability to partake of the arts, I think, is a real downfall. I do think it has a place in the city and the life of the city and the future of the city. I do think there are priorities, though, that probably would take a little bit higher priority than that. Not that it's not important, and not that the city shouldn't be looking at what we can do to have a vital and really robust arts community and culture. But coming off of COVID and other things have happened here over the last year, I'd want to make sure we're taking care of kind of the basic needs we need to take care of.
I understand that for sure. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hi, my name is Fatima. I'm a high school junior at Baylor, and I'm here as part of the Mayor's Youth Council. So
Awesome.
I worked on a couple of campaigns, both on the state level and at the local level. And one thing I've noticed is that local level elections, oftentimes like municipal candidates, can be really similar in terms of their positions. And so I wanted to know what distinguishes you policy-wise or otherwise from the other candidates in the race.
Wow, that's a really that's a pertinent observation. Well done. Here's what I would say. So a couple of the distinguishing characteristics that I bring are, one, you'll see a lot of candidates, they will kind of stand on, hey, I'm a local person. I'm a Chattanooga person. I've been here my whole life. I went to UTC, and that is absolutely fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the world we live in, right, we become a much more global, even in Chattanooga, it's much more global. And so one of the things that distinguishes me is I've only been here 4.5 years, but I've lived, right, in a different environment, in a different section of the country. And I've seen kind of a lot of things that maybe Chattanooga is trying to deal with or has been trying to deal with. And so I can bring that broader perspective outside of Chattanooga into, say, the city council and some of the ideas and things we talk about for Chattanooga. Additionally, I think my previous experience, both from a volunteer standpoint and both from a elected office with education, I think that probably is a distinguishing factor. That perspective, both from a public education perspective and both from, the early childhood and disability standpoint, especially in low-income populations. I think when you look at all that, I think that's those are a group of distinguishing factors.
Nice. I guess my next question is a little bit similar to that, but I think it still applies. I was going to ask, it seems like you have quite a few policies that mirror your incumbents' policies. How do you approach these even stronger than your opponent? Do you think that your approach is better? What kind of is your idea about that?
Great question. So a couple of things relative to the incumbent and who's my competitor. So we've been through, in our district in particular, we've been through not only the global pandemic, but we had the tornado, which, had significant impact here, including personally. And so as I sit back and I look at representation, right, it's what does your elected representative do, not when it's great and we can talk about and things are great, but what do they do when there are times of challenge or crisis? And so where I think I differ is that I believe I can bring better response and representation in challenging times, crisis situations, than maybe we have experienced in this district to date. Okay. The other thing is that, everybody, and it's a clear issue in Chattanooga, virtually every district is about roads, infrastructure, and that. And I will tell you that as I've seen over the last 4 years with our incumbent, residents been reaching out left and right about, hey, the roads are really bad, infrastructure, there's deterioration. And I would tell you that probably we haven't had as vocal representation on that issue as we should have. Right now, there's budget constraints that go with that, but if it's a real issue and you hear your constituents talking about that and you see it, my personal opinion is you would become very vocal about that in whatever way you need to stimulate action. And so just those as a couple of examples, I would put that out there, in response to your question.
I can go next. So I know in your intro you talked a little bit about your experience back where you're from with education, but I was wondering, and I know you've lived here for only a few years, but what youth issue you think is most important in the district? I'm a high school student myself. I think that even though the youth voice has been getting more recognition as of late, there's still a lot of progress to be done with youth issues. So I just wanted to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, and I'm curious, I'm not trying to be obscure, but what are some of the youth issues that you would see as kind of key as you and your peers think about that?
Personally, I think that the education disparity in the city is one issue that's very important to me. I'm fortunate enough to go to a private school, and I think that by going there and by having friends that don't go to private schools, or even just that go to different schools around the city, I think even within the public education system, there are huge disparities. I think if you go around different parts of town, obviously that's a more citywide issue, but you can see the different levels of education and resources as they relate to socioeconomic and racial disparities. So I know that that's obviously more of a citywide question, but I think a lot of the work that can be done happens on the smallest level, and obviously that translates to city council. And so that's why I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and great point. And so what I would say is, yes, there clearly is a disparity between the private school and the public school, right? I celebrate what Dr. Johnson and his team have done to upgrade the Hamilton County schools, but it's not something that happens overnight. They've made some great progress. but there's still a lot of work that must be done over a longer period of time. When you look at the public schools, right, I believe the statistic is 2/3 of the students in the Hamilton County schools are eligible for free and reduced lunch. That's a pretty big disparity, I think, between what we're seeing in the private schools here. So yes, the quality of education, things the public school system can do, and what they're doing is great, but you're right, it does relate to city council and the city, and what can we do, from a quality of life, economic status, early childhood education, helping lower income populations move up the economic ladder. Clearly, those are key issues that the city and the mayor should hopefully collaboratively, take a look at it and need to be worked on. Because I think they go hand in hand. If you can address some of those issues, then you start to address, in the actual school system.
Katie, do you have another question?
Yeah, I can totally ask another question.
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
So first responders and public safety are obviously important in every district in Chattanooga, but do you see it necessary in District 4 specifically to strengthen police training in Chattanooga? Do you think that the current standards have downfalls? If so, where do you think the downfalls are?
Right. So, as you take a look at the budget that was passed this past fiscal year, there was actually a reduction in the amount allocated to police training and recruitment. I'm not sure if that's really advisable. And so if we want to make sure we have responsible policing, responsible public safety, whether it's District 4 or anywhere in the city, I think it's important that we focus on training and make sure we're recruiting, people that live up to the standards we expect of our public safety officers or other public safety departments. District 4, look, we have issues related to crime, but they may be issues different than other districts in the city. Right, we're in Hamilton Place, and there's a lot of retail, and so there's a lot of that type of incidents. But there are other districts, obviously, that have more serious issues, and so I think we have to make sure that we have a well-trained police force. I think that Chattanooga police are very aware and very astute, and are always kind of aware and trying to make sure they're following and being as responsible and accountable as they can. But I don't think you ever reach a standard of that. I think that's something that always you kind of work on and try to improve.
The question I was going to ask, do we have time for another question? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I think we have about
Okay.
3 or 4 minutes left. Go for it.
Okay. So obviously Councilman Ledford, as an incumbent, we've been able to kind of see what he's done during his tenure. So one thing I wanted to ask you, because it's not as obvious to voters, because we haven't been able to see you in action, is what's one of the first things that you would do on the city council if you're elected?
Well, that's a good question, right? I mean, so the city council is, let's call it, it's going to be a new city council. There's going to be at least 3 seats that will they will turn over just because incumbents are running for something else or they've chosen not to run. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is that new council, and hopefully along with the new mayor, which there will be a new mayor, I hope that council comes together and starts creating the kind of teamwork and collaboration that would be necessary to, effectively help Chattanooga move forward and grow through the next 4 years. And so one of the first things that I would do is make sure that I am connecting with every council member, because you're right, they don't know me, they know Councilman Ledford, but they don't know me. And so it's going to be important. any legislative body, there has to be that collegiality, collaboration, and a building of teamwork. So that would be clearly the first order of business. And then from there, hopefully as a council, we set our agenda and kind of collaboratively look at what the path forward is.
I think I have time for one more quick question, if either of you have one. Or I can throw out one that we often get from a lot of students. If that you may be able to shed some particular light on, being someone who's moved to Chattanooga, is anecdotally we hear from students that they don't see opportunities here, I guess, after graduation. And so we often get these questions from students that they ask, what opportunities are there for me in terms of starting a career? So, as someone who sought out Chattanooga and moved here, what would be your sort of quick sales pitch to students either graduating from high school in terms of staying here, or those who have graduated college and are looking to start a career here? Why stay in Chattanooga? Why choose Chattanooga?
Well, number one, I think the potential of Chattanooga is really, really positive, especially if we're able to do two things. One, grow as some of the chamber and some of the economic planning has gone, grow the economy, bring businesses in. And so I think the potential is really, really big here, maybe more than some other places. Now, part of that is you got to be careful. What businesses are we bringing in, right? Are we bringing in businesses that are going to bring other people in, from out of state that actually will, limit opportunities for those who are here? And so I think I think still even that the potential is really good. The other thing too is just the entrepreneurial spirit here, and just the commitment to entrepreneurial businesses. I mean, that in itself will create opportunity. And so whether students, choose to have an idea and they want to develop that, or entrepreneurial businesses continue to grow and develop, I think those opportunities will come as well. And so I think, I think the future is really bright for Chattanooga. I think it's done a lot of good work to this point, but I think, there's even greater opportunity ahead.
Great, thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. It goes fast when you're having fun. But Mr. Loyd, thank you for joining us and answering our questions.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and I thank you all for your interest and commitment to local politics. I wish more people would come out and vote locally. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Great, thank you.